The lasagna was still in the oven when I went looking for the good serving spoon, the one my grandmother left me along with everything else, and that's how I ended up standing in the hallway outside the kitchen instead of in it. I heard my name first, not said to me, said about me. After she signs the house over, she can leave. That was Cooper, my husband of 6 years, talking to his mother in the low, easy voice he uses when he thinks no one's really listening, the one he uses to order at restaurants and negotiate with contractors. Vivian was at the counter. I could hear the clink of her wine glass against the granite, and she laughed, not a big laugh, just a short one, satisfied, like something had finally landed the way it was supposed to. Finally, she said. I stood there in my socks on the hardwood with the spoon still in the drawer, and I did the thing you do when the floor tilts and you don't want anyone to know you noticed. I went upstairs. I ran water in the bathroom sink for no reason. I looked at myself in the mirror and I looked completely normal, which surprised me because I did not feel normal. I felt like I'd swallowed something with edges. I should back up. My grandmother's name was Eleanor Doyle, and she ran 3 hardware stores in southern Wisconsin for almost 40 years, out of a town called Lake Geneva, that tourists think of as lake houses and ice cream shops, but that to me was inventory sheets and the smell of cut lumber, and a woman who did not believe in wasting a Saturday. I spent summers there starting when I was 8, after my parents split and neither of them particularly wanted a kid underfoot. Eleanor taught me to read a balance sheet before she taught me to parallel park. She sold the stores when she was 73, invested the money conservatively for the next 15 years, and when she died 2 years ago, at 91, in her sleep, in the house on the lake she refused to leave even after her hip stopped cooperating, she left all of it to me. $3.8 million. I was her only grandchild. There was no one to split it with, no one to argue with about it, no drama in the will. Just Eleanor's handwriting on a note tucked inside the folder Patricia Vance gave me, which said, "Don't let anyone talk you out of your own judgment, not even someone you love." I didn't understand that note for a long time. I understand it now. Cooper and I bought the house in Naperville outright, no mortgage, with money from that inheritance 4 years ago. It was my decision, and at the time it felt like a good one. A house with no bank breathing down our necks, a yard, a real kitchen, close enough to the train that Cooper could get downtown to his office in 40 minutes. I put the deed in my name alone, on Patricia's advice, because that's how you keep inherited money separate under Illinois law, and Cooper didn't fight me on it. He said it made sense. He said he trusted me. I believed him, because 6 years in, I had no particular reason not to. The estate planning conversation started about 14 months ago. Cooper brought it up first. At dinner, very casual, the way you bring up something you've already decided and are just walking someone else toward. He said we should think long term. He said it wasn't fair that if something happened to me, the house would go through a whole complicated process instead of just being ours together cleanly. He said his mother's estate attorney, not mine, his, had some good ideas about a joint trust. Vivian, who has never in her life expressed an unprompted opinion about my finances that wasn't also somehow about her own comfort, started chiming in around the holidays. Little comments. You two really should get your affairs in order. You never know. She said it with a smile she probably practiced. I went along with some of the early conversations because I didn't want to be the wife who says no to everything, the one who makes her husband feel like a suspect in his own marriage. We met with his mother's attorney twice. I dragged my feet on the 3rd meeting, and then the 4th, telling myself I was just busy, and some part of me, the part that grew up watching Eleanor squint at contracts before she signed anything, ever, for any reason, kept quietly stalling. 2 years ago, before any of this trust talk started, I had emergency surgery after a car accident on 355, ruptured spleen, 3 days in the ICU, the kind of scare that makes you sign paperwork you don't read closely because you're terrified and drugged, and your husband is standing there looking like he wants to help. I gave Cooper power of attorney that week, financial and medical both. It felt like the responsible thing to do. I healed. I never revoked it. Why would I have? He was my husband. The signing appointment, the one for the joint trust, the one that would move the house out of my sole name, was scheduled for 10 the next morning, at his mother's attorney's office downtown. I had told Cooper 2 days earlier that I was ready. I don't fully know why I said yes right then. I think I was tired of the conversation. I think some quiet, stupid, hopeful part of me wanted to believe there wasn't anything to be suspicious of. So when I heard him say after she signs the house over, she can leave, and I heard his mother say finally, I understood immediately what I'd almost walked into, not an estate plan, an exit plan. Upstairs I didn't cry, which surprised me later when I thought back on it. I sat on the edge of the bed and I felt something in my chest go very cold and very clear, the way water gets right before it freezes. I texted my friend Jenna one line, Call me the second you're free. It's bad. And then I called Patricia Vance. Patricia had been Eleanor's attorney for 26 years before she was mine. She picked up on the second ring, because Eleanor trained her clients the same way she trained her staff, which is to say, she trained them to expect that money doesn't respect business hours. I told her what I'd heard. I told her about tomorrow's 10 o'clock appointment. There was a pause on the line, and then she said, in the same flat, unbothered voice she uses for everything, "Good thing we did the paperwork in March then." I'd forgotten. Or maybe I hadn't forgotten so much as I'd tucked it away. Back in the spring, after a dinner where Vivian had pushed a little too hard about the trust, and something in my gut had gone tight and wrong, I'd called Patricia the next week, quietly, and asked her to draft an irrevocable trust, the Eleanor Doyle Trust, named for my grandmother, funded eventually by the house and by the inheritance, with me as the sole beneficiary. I'd signed it, had it notarized, never filed it, never funded it, told myself I was being paranoid, and then let it sit in a drawer in Patricia's office for 5 months, like an umbrella I hoped I wouldn't need. That night I needed it. Patricia met me at her office at 11:15. I told Cooper I couldn't sleep and was going to sit up reading downstairs. He was already half asleep by then, unbothered, a man who believed tomorrow was already decided. Vivian had gone home. The house was dark and quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator, and I stood in the kitchen for a second before I left, looking at the counter where she'd said finally. And then I got in my car. Downtown Chicago at midnight in August smells like river water and hot asphalt cooling down. Patricia's office was lit up on the 9th floor, just the two of us and her paralegal, who she'd called in without complaint, because that's the kind of loyalty Eleanor's money bought decades ago and never had to buy again. We recorded the trust deed that night, transferring the house, solely, irrevocably, permanently, out of my individual name and into the Eleanor Doyle Trust, with me as the only beneficiary, no co-trustee, no provision for a spouse, nothing for anyone to sign on to later. Filed electronically with the county the second the portal opened at 7 the next morning, time-stamped done. From my phone, sitting in Patricia's conference room, I logged into the investment account that held the rest of the $3.8 million and initiated a transfer into a new account under the trust as well, one Cooper had never had access to, one that didn't exist as far as he knew. It cleared before sunrise, and then I did the third thing, the smallest thing on paper, and it turned out the thing that actually broke him. I had Patricia draft a one-page revocation of the power of attorney I'd given Cooper 2 years earlier, financial and medical both, effective immediately, notarized, sent that same night to the 3 financial institutions that had it on file, and copied, as a courtesy Patricia insisted on, and I didn't argue with, to the attorney his mother had lined up for the trust signing that would now never happen. I got home around 2, showered and lay in bed next to my husband, who slept the way he always slept, like a man with nothing on his conscience. I didn't sleep at all. I watched the ceiling fan turn and thought about Eleanor's note. Don't let anyone talk you out of your own judgment. He got up at 6:40, same as always, made coffee, same as always. I watched him from the kitchen table, my own coffee cooling in front of me, and I said nothing, because there was nothing left to negotiate. At 7:50, his phone buzzed on the counter. I watched him pick it up, still in his undershirt, scrolling with one thumb the way he does, half-focused, expecting Tuesday. I watched his face change in real time. It started as confusion, a small crease between his eyebrows, and then it dropped into something else entirely, something I hadn't seen on him before, not once in 6 years. He put the coffee mug down so hard it cracked the handle. Brielle, just that. My name loud, cracking in the middle like he didn't have enough air behind it. I looked up from my own phone, calm, the way you look up when you already know exactly what someone's about to say. Yes? What is this? What is this? He was holding the phone out at me like it had bitten him. The trust filing, the revoked power of attorney, the cancellation of the 10 o'clock appointment. And beneath it, the email Patricia had sent at 7 a.m. sharp confirming the house was no longer and would never again be anything he had a claim to. This can't be real. You can't just, I can, I said. I did. His mother's number lit up his phone screen next, and I watched him not answer it, watched him stand in our kitchen in his undershirt with his mouth open and nothing coming out. And I thought about the word finally, and how satisfying it had sounded coming out of her mouth the night before, and how satisfying in a completely different and much quieter way. It felt coming true now, just not for either of them. I finished my coffee. I told him I'd be at Jenna's if he wanted to talk once he'd calmed down, and that Patricia would be handling everything else from here. Then I got my keys and I left, and for the first time in longer than I want to admit, leaving a room felt like something I was choosing, instead of something being decided for me. Protect what's yours before you need to, not after. Keep inherited or separate property titled and documented the way an attorney, your own, not a family member's, advises. Review and revoke old powers of attorney once the reason for them has passed. And when your gut goes quiet and cold in a moment like the one in that hallway, trust it before you trust an explanation. The paperwork that saves you is almost always the paperwork you did while you still hoped you wouldn't need it.